Can you please run down what has happened with Michael Thomas, Derek Carr, New Orleans Saints, and Dennis Allen? Because obviously everything ain't peachy.
Everything is not peachy. A man just lost his job, and Dennis Allen is no longer the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. That's the first one. We'll touch on that quickly because I believe the juicy stuff, yes, is in the Derek Carr and Michael Thomas situation. Essentially, the locker room's lost. It's broken. They don't know how to fix it. But my understanding, more importantly, Steve, is they believe Dennis Allen can't be the one to fix it, that he doesn't know how to fix it. So they go and find another route after this season on how they're going to fix this year. There's a lot to be had there. Real quickly, I'll say it's a team that is probably, if you ask around the league, a middle of the tier type of job opportunity. This is one that has financial issues down the road. They're only $77 million over the cap for next year right now, and a lot of contracts that they can't get out of, with an aging roster that still is good.
Hold on,
roster.
wait, hold the phone. You can't just
just brush over $77
million over the cap. There's $77 million over the cap.
Over the cap. Over
How
the
do you
cap for
get
next year.
right with $77 million over the cap?
The
So
issue
that
with
means
this,
they're going to have to fire sale or just cut their losses.
and that's the hard part with the way the New Orleans Saints are wired, because what usually happens in New Orleans, right? They don't ever admit that they're in a fire sale mode, that they're in a rebuild mode. It's been this way for decades now with Mickey Loomis running this and the way Sean Payton was running it. Money was just getting kicked down the can over and over again. And eventually, you're going to look in your email, Steve, or it's going to come in, old school mail. I'm not sure which version you get, your credit card statement, but they are well over the balance. And they're gonna that number's coming due. And I think I had a GM in the league tell me this. Whoever the next head coach is, Steve, that's probably going to have to be a 6-year contract, because these next 2 years of your deal, they're not on you. Those first 2 years aren't on you. What you got to clean up in terms of where the roster is, you don't have a quarterback, and where you are financially, and the dead money you're going to be operating with. So I think it's a really interesting situation when they move on. Remember, they were looking at quarterbacks in the first round. They were looking to try to move up or take a quarterback early. Now, where do things stand with Derek Carr? If you part ways with him pre-June 1st, it's only $51 million in dead cap money for next season. If it's post-June 1, I believe it's It's nuts, man. I mean, if it's post June 1, it's 21.4 next year and $30 million in 2026. There's some issues that they definitely have to deal with.
Does that include the $77 million that they're over? So do I add?
No, he's part of it.
$57 million?
No. He's
part of
the
okay.
77.
So how much is he part?
Well, it can be maneuvered. I mean, obviously, this is the way they maneuver. They love to maneuver. Void. It's insane. It's wild. So I think this situation is going to be fascinating to watch what they do after the year, because Mickey Loomis is going nowhere. And Gail Benson had an opportunity after they got mollywopped by their former head coach and Sean Payton on a Thursday night, on the night that they honored Drew Brees, and the stands just emptied in the second half. With that being a Thursday night, extra time, had a couple conversations, I'm told, with some of these players in New Orleans, got a good pulse on where the locker room stands. And then when your Carolina Panthers took them down this past Sunday, that was kind of the other part that usually happens with a coach being let go during the season, when the failures are now public. When you got Kalen Saunders tweeting on the bus that he's going to be in Cancun come January, you have a lot of things getting out to where now it's a
week 9. You already in Cancun?
Oh, he was tweeting on the bus, Steve. He was tweeting on the bus. I'm going to be in Cancun January 10th. Let's go. So this is where things obviously got worse, and we'll transition now to that's a good transition to Twitter and to Michael Thomas, because we did see, and I know you're laughing, he is ass on a granny is probably a term that I never thought I'd say on a broadcast.
I ain't never heard that one. On my granny tush, bro.
What was your take? Because this is why it's connected. What was your take on the ball Derek Carr threw Chris Olave, that thankfully he is healthy. He's out of the hospital, obviously taken off the field on a backboard, on a cart. Scary looking situation. Also his 5th concussion of his career, includes one in college. What was your take on the ball, first off? Because that's what Michael Thomas, it's what started this whole Twitter extravaganza?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a tight window. He probably shouldn't have threw the ball in. How about that?
Let me ask you this, because I asked another receiver, Steve. It was that ball should be low or dirted. Like it should be my guy can catch it low, or it's borderline into the dirt. Is that a proper analysis for that type of spot on the field?
I generally would like the football more in my chest because that allows me to kind of pick my options. Right, I don't really like a low ball because I'm 5'9", so it's just I don't really like diving for the ball like that because I already fractured my neck in college, so I'm a little sensitive to the low passes.
Makes sense.
I always felt throw the ball here, and I can protect myself. If you throw it here, now you've taken that out of my hands, and now I have to depend on you to direct me where to go. And I never really liked that. I would go up begrudgingly. Like I would go up like, oh, and roll my eyes and puff because I knew I couldn't control it. And we talked about this. I'm a one-legged jumper. So I rarely jumped off two legs unless it was in the end zone where I'm going straight up. If I'm going forward, I would always go with one leg. So that's why I preferred catching the ball in my chest because I always had one foot up, which means I was looking, okay, if the ball's here, he's telling me that the defender is coming. So that would tell me with my one foot, I would be able to spin the other way. Now, that is not always the case, but I'm just telling you from my mindset of how I played the game, what I would do based on my body mechanics and how I played the game from the shoulders up, which is one leg, depending on the ball, meant how I would turn, how I would catch the ball, and how I would protect myself. With that all being said, it was a tight throw. Carr always has kind of, when you rush him, he's always kind of panicked and kind of hesitates with throwing the football. That's one of his MOs. That's one of the things that
it's been a trait his whole career, yes.
But as a receiver, you also got to know your opponent and you got to know your teammate. And you know that's coming, so you have to decide. That's what they call a business decision. You got to decide, am I going to go up for this football? And earlier in my career, I would. Later in my career, I'm like, man, I done seen this movie before, and it don't look good for 8-9, so I'm not going to do it.
I get it. Listen, Michael Thomas, this stems back from a ball that Derek Carr threw him the previous year that he believes led him to an injury, that he believes kept him from 1,000 yards. Obviously, Michael Thomas is also at home watching this game because right now he's not currently on an NFL roster. That he's a free agent. What I'm referencing was a tweet that Michael Thomas had since deleted that he said last year about a ball that Derek Carr threw him over the middle. I'll say this. I don't think Derek Carr's trying to hurt any of his teammates. I don't think he's intentionally trying to hang any of his teammates out to dry.
No, it happens though.
It does. It totally happens. I always go back to Tom Brady always being very public about trying his best as a quarterback to see it as quickly as possible to make the correct decision not to put his receiver in that type of position. And so those are some of the things that go through a quarterback's mind when they're trying to make a decision. But also, Steve, you can have a bad throw. You can also have a real bad throw that hangs your receiver out to dry as well. I do think, in all honesty, the post-game press conference, Derek Carr handled it publicly about the best he could. When he was asked repeatedly about Michael Thomas's comments. And he said he's had a lot of teammates, and he doesn't know why, but Michael Thomas is one he never got along with. And so this stems, it seems to be a bit personal between the two.
You think? How'd you gather that information? You think so? You think it's personal?
Well, I am a journalist.
Bro, Granny's tush? I ain't never heard that one. That was the first one.
That's definitely a first.
Hey, so let me ask you, how does something like this happen and go downhill so quickly, publicly like this, with a former teammate who's currently not on the roster, watching his former team? Like, I've never really seen that. I mean, we've seen it a little bit, but not to this magnitude. Like, what? Mm-mm. How does a team get like this so quickly, so fast, and publicly?
Well, I mean, you are lumping in Michael Thomas into how does a team have an issue so publicly, because Michael Thomas is not part of the team anymore. So you could say it's a former player being upset about what's going on with the current team, because I think it'd be a much larger story in all honesty, Steve, if this is a guy who's on IR or something and he's on the roster, he's still in the locker room with Derek Carr, and he's saying these things. Michael Thomas is not part of the Saints anymore, so I do think there is a little bit of a split there.
But it's obviously he's talking about something of the past, and this obviously has not been addressed. It's a unresolved issue.
Unresolved issue for sure. I'm not sure if he's telling the truth or not. I don't know. I haven't checked his cell phone records, but Derek Carr says that he has reached out to Michael Thomas, says he still has the same number. They've never spoken about it. He's tried to get to the bottom of it, and he has gotten no answers from Mike. So I think what also culminates, and this stems back to Dennis Allen, and it stems back to where things are right now. Who's the guy who wanted to bring Derek Carr to New Orleans? It's his former head coach in Dennis Allen. He wanted to bring Derek there. It all kind of does come together in some capacity when the coach who is now just fired this week is also the one who brought the quarterback to the city and to the franchise. It will be fascinating to see what Derek Carr's future is, Steve, after this season, because it's going to be very interesting what happens in New Orleans moving forward and what the plan is.
So let me ask you this. Where does Derek Carr go next year? Let's just say hypothetically, Derek Carr is released of his duties as because a new head coach is going to come in. He's going to want his guy, unless he's forced to keep Carr on the roster because of the money implications. Is Derek Carr, in your opinion, at this point in his career, based off 9 weeks in, is he a starting quarterback in the National Football League for another team next year?
I think we're getting, you know what my comp might be now in Derek Carr after this season? I think we're getting into Andy Dalton territory.
Ooh, okay.
Where I think he's on a roster. I think there's a chance he could be a starter. I mean, I don't know if there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So his chance of landing somewhere is probably good. I mean, Russell Wilson landed somewhere as a starting quarterback after the 2 years he had in Denver, and I don't think Derek Carr's played like that. So I would say that he has a job, but I think we are entering the Andy Dalton type of range. Yes.